Alrighty, we are live. Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Law Entrance YouTube channel and to another session of the Hindu analysis. Today is 4th of September, and we are ready to begin. How many of you are live on the stream? Please let me know in the chat box if I'm audible, if I'm visible. Just give me a quick yes in the chat box, and then let's start our discussion for the day. It's 4th of September. Let's look at today's agenda. Let's look at today's discussion points. So 3 action points today, 3 articles today, which we're going to discuss in a little more detail. The first one is regarding GST slabs. So we have been discussing this the past few days that earlier there were 4 GST slabs, but now the government is planning to bring it down to 2 GST slabs. Jaldi se mujhe batao in the chat box, which are the 2 tax slabs which are going to come into effect. The percentages, just tell me quickly in the chat box and we'll start. Then the second article is regarding concealing dissent. Dissent is the difference of opinion which Justice B.V. Nagratna, the only female judge currently in the Supreme Court, has expressed. And this dissent was regarding the appointment of a particular judge to the Supreme Court of India. So we'll talk about why this dissent is being concealed, why this is not being, made publicly available. What is the reason behind that, or the implications for that? That is something which we're going to discuss in detail on the PPT. And the third one is regarding maritime reforms. This is regarding the recent Indian Ports Bill, which has been passed on 18th of August, I believe. So we'll discuss what exactly has happened, what are the reforms, what are the changes, and again, what are the consequences of that. And then, of course, we'll be doing 3 new vocabulary words for the day. Also, just a quick disclaimer, tomorrow is Friday, but tomorrow we might not be able to have our Minty quiz for some logistical reasons. But next week, we'll be back with the Minty quiz. So next Minty quiz would happen on Tuesday, which would be current affairs for the month of July. So come prepared for that, current affairs of July, which we'll do on Tuesday in the analysis session. Friday को Minty quiz नहीं करेंगे हम. ठीक है, Friday को आपकी reasoning की class होगी, and I'll also give you guys a session on 3 months to CLAT. That would be a strategy session. If you guys have any questions which you want me to address in the 3-month strategy video, please let me know in the comment section after this particular stream. So live chat में नहीं, comments में मुझे बता देना what are the points which you want to address, and I'll address them in this particular session. 3-month strategy to CLAT. With that being said, let's start today's discussion by looking at the newspaper for the day. We'll have a few articles which we're going to discuss on the newspaper, and then we'll come back to our PPT to discuss these 3 important points along with vocabulary for the day. ठीक है, start करें. चलो, let's begin our discussion for the day. Let's come back to the newspaper. I'll just open up the newspaper for you all. Just give me a moment. Alrighty. ठीक है. Here we go. I hope the newspaper is visible now to everyone. Just give me a quick yes if the newspaper is visible. All right, cool. So here you can see the first article. GST Council approves 2-rate tax slab effective 22nd December. So the GST Council has approved this, but this would come into effect after 22nd of this month. What are the 2 tax slabs? It's 5% and 18%, as you guys rightly mentioned in the chat. And apart from that, there's also a special 40% rate for sin goods. Now, what are sin goods? People who have studied economics would probably know that sin goods are the ones which are traditionally looked down upon in the society. So you could say alcohol, tobacco, luxury goods. I don't know why luxury goods are called sin goods, but yeah, it is what it is. So उस पे जो है 40% GST लगेगा. Life insurance से tax हट गया है, health policies से tax हट गया है, and price of daily goods are gonna come down. Food items would get cheaper, life-saving medicines would get cheaper, cement would get cheaper. We'll discuss all of this on the PPT when we come back to this article. But yeah, that is what the news is. On the right-hand side, you see governors must act forthwith on bills, states argue in Supreme Court. So you can see Kapil Sibal and Gopal Subramaniam, both of them giving their statements. Kapil Sibal is saying governors create conflict by sitting over bills for years together. Their doubts about the constitutionality of bills is a bogey. And in response, Gopal Subramaniam, who was the counsel for Karnataka, the state of Karnataka, says governors have to act on the advice of the state government. Governance cannot happen in a constant state of conflict. So what exactly is happening here? Just a second. Yeah. So the thing is that this is in context with the Tamil Nadu case, the Tamil Nadu governor case, where the Supreme Court said that the governors cannot indefinitely delay the action on bills which are passed by the state legislature. And they introduced a guideline which said that they had to pass, or not pass exactly, but act on the bills within a 3 month window. But some states argued that even that is too long. 3 months is too long for a governor to act upon a bill. अब मोस्टली यहाँ पे हम बात कर रहे हैं वेस्ट बंगाल की, कर्नाटका की, हिमाचल प्रदेश की. यूजुअली, not usually, these are the non BJP governed states: West Bengal, Karnataka, and Himachal. And the key concerns, what are the key concerns? First is, of course, the delay by the governors in granting assent, which, of course, we have discussed, undermines democracy, undermines the will of the people. And the governors are using this inaction to even block bills without any accountability. कि ठीक है, हम एक्शन नहीं लेंगे, हम वापस भी नहीं भेजेंगे, रिजेक्ट भी नहीं करेंगे और एक्सेप्ट भी नहीं करेंगे, हम उस पर बैठे रहेंगे, विच इज प्रॉब्लमैटिक. सो कपिल सिब्बल ने क्या कहा मैंने आपको बता दिया, गोपाल सुब्रमण्यम ने क्या कहा मैंने आपको बता दिया. यू ऑल नो द आर्टिकल रिगार्डिंग दिस, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल आर्टिकल, आर्टिकल 200, which says that governors must act as soon as possible. बट as soon as possible की कोई डेफिनेशन, कोई टाइमलाइन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में नहीं है. So Kapil Sibal says that this should mean forthwith or immediately, यानी कि as soon as possible मतलब तुरंत से पहले. ठीक है. अब इसमें चीफ मिनिस्टर का क्या रोल रहता है? चीफ मिनिस्टर की ड्यूटी इज गिवन इन आर्टिकल 167, which is to inform the governor about the legislative plans as a part of the process. उसके बाद गवर्नर का रोल बस फॉर्मल होता है. इट्स नॉट डिस्क्रिशनरी. गवर्नर कैन नॉट डिसाइड बेस्ड ऑन हिज और हर डिस्क्रिशन. द एक्सपेक्टेशन इज असेंट ऑफ द बिल, नॉट ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द बिल. So yeah, this is what it is. Let's move ahead to the next articles. Yeah. Rain fury claims dozens of lives across northern states. This we all know, like Punjab, Himachal, Uttarakhand, all of them have been hit by intense monsoon this year, and you can see the damage. High Court seeks Centre's response on plea alleging misuse of CAPF personnel for domestic work. What CAPF? It's Central Armed Police Force. So these are, sort of special forces, कह सकते हैं आप एक तरीके से, which serve like a addition to the regular military forces. But yeah, these work in conjunction with the police as well as the military. Usually आपको airport and all पे CAPF दिखेगी, या फिर securities and all of high level ministers, उसमें CAPF आपको दिखेगी. बट यहाँ पे सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स क्या कर रहे हैं? सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स और सीनियर ऑफिसर्स उनको अपने डोमेस्टिक वर्क के लिए यूज कर रहे हैं. तो उसी के अराउंड दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने सेंटर से जवाब मांगा है कि भाई ये मिसयूज क्यों हो रहा है. The center, you see, KCR's daughter Kavita quits as BRS MLC. This we saw yesterday as well. This is a family dispute sort of a thing. इन्होंने सीनियर लीडर्स के अगेंस्ट कुछ बोल दिया था, फिर जो है कलेश हो गया. Foreign companies halted India projects worth 2 lakh crore in Q1. Q1 is quarter one. Quarter one of what? Quarter one of the financial year. So not a great news. 2 lakh crore के projects जो हैं रोक दिए foreign companies ने. This is mostly because of the geopolitical scenario and the changing tariffs, the US tariffs. उसी की वजह से है ये. City-based news is not important for us, so we'll skip right past it. State-based news में मराठा कोटा रो, OBC leaders threaten protest, Bhujbal to approach court. ये हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. This is a protest going on in Maharashtra for OBC reservation. कल हमने देखा था कि the leader who was protesting against this inclusion, in favor of this inclusion rather, he broke his fast or his व्रत. क्या है उन लीडर का नाम जिनकी हम कल बात कर रहे थे? आप लोग मुझे चैट बॉक्स में बताओ. Who am I talking of? Who was the person who was on a indefinite strike and fast to get this reservation? Tell me in the chat box. On the right hand side, you see Rajasthan passes revised bill to check coaching centers amid opposition's protest. Now, what is this all about? So the context here is that there's a bill called the Rajasthan Coaching Centers Control and Regulation Bill, which was passed. The amended version of it was passed rather on 4th of September, despite a lot of objections and concerns raised by the opposition party, which is Congress. अब इस बिल में है क्या? What exactly is the objective of this bill? The objective is to regulate and monitor the coaching industry. We all know the coaching industry has a stronghold in a particular Rajasthani city. Can you guys tell me the name of the city famous for having a lot of coaching centers in Rajasthan? जल्दी से मुझे चैट बॉक्स में बताओ कौन सी है वो कोचिंग क्या कहते हैं हब वाली सिटी. So yeah, coming back to the bill, the amendment is to regulate and monitor this coaching industry and ensure accountability of the coaching institutions. क्यों? Because हर साल जो है बहुत सारे students suicide कर लेते हैं वहाँ पे, mostly stress की वजह से कोटा में. तो उसको रेगुलेट करने के लिए दे आर ब्रिंगिंग दिस पर्टिकुलर बिल, जहाँ पे वो कह रहे हैं कि जो भी कोचिंग सेंटर 100 से ज़्यादा बच्चों को केटर करते हैं वो इसके स्कोप में लाई करेंगे. एंड इसमें फर्स्ट ऑफेंस पे 50,000 का फाइन है, सेकेंड ऑफेंस पे 2 लाख का फाइन है. एंड अगर रिपीटेड वायलेशन है तो आपका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल कर दिया जाएगा, कोचिंग का रजिस्ट्रेशन. एंड कांग्रेस ने इसको क्रिटिक किया. उन्होंने कहा है कि बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट जो है बिल को डाइल्यूट करे. क्यों डाइल्यूट करे? क्योंकि पहले जो है जो कोचिंग सेंटर्स 50 से ज्यादा बच्चों को केटर करते थे वो भी इस बिल के अंडर आते थे. अब जो है 100 से ज्यादा वाले कोचिंग सेंटर्स ही इस बिल के अंडर आएंगे. पहले स्पेसिफिक फाइन्स जो है मेंशन नहीं थे, अब स्पेसिफिक फाइन्स मेंशन है. पहले ओरिजिनल बिल जो है काफी ब्रॉड था, अब जो है काफी नैरो हो गया है. काफी सारे इंस्टीट्यूशंस इसके परव्यू से बाहर हो गए. सो दैट इज व्हाई ऑपोजिशन इज सेइंग कि द बिल इज गेटिंग डाइल्यूटेड टू प्रोटेक्ट द कोचिंग माफिया. And this is weakening student protections and ignoring the norms of the center. तो यही बात है. अब गवर्नमेंट अपने डिफेंस में कह रही है कि the bill will formalize and regulate a unregulated industry and bring transparency, accountability, prevent exploitation, all of those things. तो यही है मित्रों इसमें कॉन्टेक्स्ट. आगे चलते हैं. Police lathi charge, farmers waiting for fertilizer, not important. Assam party protest, not important. How can friendship be proved with documentary evidence for organ donation? Asks Madras High Court. So Madras High Court ने basically यही पूछा है कि organ donation में जब आप कहते हो कि आप friend से अपने organ donation में आपको priority मिलेगी, तो आप कैसे डिटर्मिन करोगे फ्रेंडशिप किसी के साथ है या नहीं? तो मद्रास हाई कोर्ट ने बेसिकली कमिटी को डिनाई कर दिया, इस डिसीजन को ओवरटर्न कर दिया, which allowed permission for a kidney transplant between two individuals. The person is C. Ganeshan versus, not versus, and V. Periasamy. One is the donor, one is the recipient, and they claim to be family friends. अब क्यों डिनाई कर दिया ये ट्रांसप्लांट? तो कमिटी ने जो है ये पास किया था, एंड फिर they sort of failed to provide documentary proof of their friendship. कि भाई फ्रेंडशिप वो प्रूफ नहीं कर पाए बेसिकली डॉक्यूमेंट से, एविडेंस से. एंड द लॉ सेज दैट अनरिलेटेड डोनेशंस only if they are motivated by love and affection and free from financial transactions can be approved. यानी कि आप प्यार मोहब्बत से ऑर्गन डोनेट कर रहे हो बिना किसी फाइनेंशियल गेन के, तभी जो है आप अनरिलेटेड इंसान को डोनेट कर सकते हो, वरना आप अनरिलेटेड इंसान को डोनेट नहीं कर सकते अपने ऑर्गन्स. अब वही है कि जज साहब ने कहा फ्रेंडशिप के बारे में कि दिस इज वेरी सब्जेक्टिव, लाइक रिलेशनशिप लाइक फ्रेंडशिप इज वेरी सब्जेक्टिव एंड इट्स हार्ड टू प्रूव इट थ्रू ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंट्स. एंड दे सेड दैट this does not have a lot of logic. He said that emotion plays a big part in a relationship involving friends and it's not determined through documentation per se. तो वही है कि इन्होंने साइट किया ट्रांसप्लांटेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन ऑर्गन्स एंड टिश्यूज एक्ट of 1994 का, which does not prohibit unrelated organ donations, but it requires that the donation should be voluntary and free of coercion या financial inducement. कि कोई पैसे देके या धमकी देके आपसे ऑर्गन डोनेट नहीं करवा रहा है. अब इसमें बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ किस पे होता है? बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ जो है इट्स ऑन द रेसिपिएंट कि भाई यहाँ पे कमर्शियल इंटेंट नहीं है कोई. दोनों पे ही है वैसे बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ. तो वही बात है कि दिस इज सॉर्ट ऑफ टू ऑर्गेनाइज इंडियाज ऑर्गन ट्रांसप्लांट रेगुलेशंस, जहाँ पे द कोर्ट वांट्स कि सिर्फ जेन्युइन डोनेशंस जो हैं अप्रूव हो रादर देन वंस व्हिच आर ऑर्गन डोनेशंस डिस्गाइज्ड एज ऑर्गन ट्रैफिकिंग. तो वो चीज जो है ब्लॉक करना चाहता है कोर्ट. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. फेथफुल फ्लॉक टू उत्तराखंड नैना देवी टेम्पल आफ्टर एनिमल सैक्रिफाइस नॉट. तो हाईकोर्ट से इनको एनिमल सैक्रिफाइस की परमिशन मिल गई है एंड अब जो है श्रद्धालु पहुंच गए हैं नैना देवी टेम्पल. नैना देवी टेम्पल इज इन नैनीताल. उसी के नाम पे, नैना देवी के नाम पे, उन्हीं के नाम पे द सिटी इज नेम्ड नैनीताल. नैना पीक भी है वहाँ पे, नैना देवी टेम्पल भी है वहाँ पे, लेक भी है नैनी लेक. ब्यूटीफुल सिटी, क्वाइट नियर टू माई होम टाउन एज वेल. तो यहाँ पे मेला लगता है नैना देवी फेयर विच इज क्वाइट अ पॉपुलर वन. तो वही है कि ये ट्रेडिशन जो है एनिमल सैक्रिफाइस वाला ये रोक दिया गया था लगभग 2010 के आसपास. अब इसको दोबारा से परमिशन मिल गई है. बहुत पुराना रिचुअल है. आगे चलते हैं. एडिटोरियल कंसीलिंग अ जजेस डिसेंट एंड इरोडिंग जुडिशरीज अथॉरिटी. दिस विल डिस्कस ऑन द पीपीटी. दिस इज वन ऑफ आवर आर्टिकल्स. On the left hand side, we have rain and repeat. Excess rain is no excuse for damage caused by neglect of sluices. Sluices एक तरीके से आप लैंडस्लाइड कह सकते हो, या फिर जो डिफॉरेस्टेशन की वजह से डैमेज होता है वो कह सकते हो. तो वही है कि एक्सेस रेन इज नॉट एन एक्सक्यूज, स्पेशली यहाँ पे नॉर्दर्न स्टेट्स के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हम बात कर रहे हैं कि यू नीड टू टेक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ सस्टेनिंग द एनवायरनमेंट इन अ गुड वे. आगे चलते हैं. India's recent maritime reforms need course correction. This is also another article which we'll discuss on the PPT. Family politics हम discuss कर चुके हैं. Kavita is jostling for power within BRS. Reviving Manrega in West Bengal. What is Manrega? Manrega is a government scheme, rural employment guarantee scheme, एक national Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. That is what Manrega is. It was enacted in 2005, and what it does is it guarantees 100 days of paid work per year to every rural households that demand it. Mostly, this benefits women, Dalits, Adivasis, landless workers, and vulnerable people, जो मोस्टली डिस्ट्रेस में रहते हैं, गरीबी में रहते हैं. एंड वेस्ट बंगाल में मनरेगा स्कीम को रोक दिया गया था. क्यों रोक दिया गया था? द सेंटर सेड दैट देयर आर लॉट ऑफ इरेगुलरिटीज वहाँ पे विच इज हैपनिंग, एंड जो फंड्स हम दे रहे हैं वो सही से यूटिलाइज नहीं हो रहे. And then it was later held that this blanket suspension of this scheme was disproportionate. This was unfair. This was leading to a lot of lost wages, approximately 4,000 to 6,000 crore तक के lost rural wages in the first year itself, and also the erosion of trust in the administration. So that's what's happening. अब करंट स्टेटस ये है कि सेंटर ने अपील किया है हाई कोर्ट के ऑर्डर को सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, ये जो हॉल्ट करने का ऑर्डर है. एंड कैलकाटा हाईकोर्ट ने बेसिकली बोला था कि वापस से स्टार्ट किया जाए मनरेगा स्कीम को वेस्ट बंगाल में 1 अगस्त से. एंड किसी ने नहीं, एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने पिटीशन डाली थी. PBKMS करके एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, पंजाब किंग्स वाली IPL टीम नहीं है. दिस इज पश्चिम बंग खेत मजदूर समिति, an organization which works for the welfare of laborers and farmers. एंड सेंटर ने जो है हॉल्ट कर दिए थे मनरेगा के फंड्स 2022 में, saying कि बहुत सारी इरेगुलरिटीज हो रही है. तो सेंटर ने कहा कि ये स्कीम जो है दिस कैन नॉट बी केप्ट इन कोल्ड स्टोरेज एंड देयर हैव टू बी स्पेशल कंडीशंस टू बी फ्रेम्ड फॉर इट्स इम्प्लीमेंटेशन. तो वही है कि फिर सेंटर ने अपील किया हाई कोर्ट के ऑर्डर को जिसने ये रोक दिया था, एंड इट्स येट टू बी हर्ड बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट येट. तो देखते हैं इसमें आगे क्या डिसीजन आता है. दैट इज व्हाट दिस आर्टिकल एड्रेसेस फॉर नाउ. काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें इन्होंने बताई हैं कि एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव प्रिपेयर्डनेस जो है बहुत सारी चाहिए, बिकॉज 3 साल से स्कीम जो है हॉल्ट पे है, डॉर्मेंट है. तो देयर इज अ ह्यूज गैप इन आइडेंटिफिकेशन एंड रेडीनेस ऑफ द स्कीम. फिर दूसरी चीज़ है कंप्लायंस आप कैसे करोगे. आधार बेस्ड पेमेंट सिस्टम एक बना हुआ है जिसमें जिन वर्कर्स का आधार करेक्टली लिंक्ड है थ्रू NPCI विच इज नेशनल पेमेंट कॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया, उन्हीं को वेजेस उनके बैंक अकाउंट में दिए जाएंगे. जो कंप्लायंट नहीं है उनको नहीं दिए जाएंगे. And as of now, lot of workers, lakhs of workers are ineligible because of this Aadhaar not being linked. The third thing is a lot of workers have been deleted from West Bengal's rolls in the past 3 years. 15% लगभग workers have been deleted. तो उनको वापस लाना पड़ेगा to ensure proper access and streamline the process. And फिर टेक्नोलॉजिकल bottlenecks हैं काफ़ी सारे, कि अटेंडेंस कैसे आप उनकी कैलकुलेट करोगे, and how do you track how much a person is working. तो वही बात है कि there are a lot of compliances and reforms which need to come in order to revive this scheme in West Bengal, so that we can again build the trust, build the readiness, build the institutional support which is provided through this particular scheme. ठीक है जी, आगे चलते हैं. ये स्किप कर सकते हो. Should reservations exceed the 50% cap? Let's read the gist of it. Article 15 and 16 guarantee equality to all citizens in any action by the state, including admission to educational institutions and public employment, respectively. There has been a growing demand for increasing the reservation percentage beyond the judicial cap of 50% to reflect the proportion of backward classes in the population. Right to equality of opportunity is a fundamental right. जल्दी से मुझे आर्टिकल बताओ इसका. Which article of the Constitution talks about right to equality of opportunity as a fundamental right? And an increase in reservation up to 85% may be seen as violating such right. Nevertheless, substantive equality through affirmative action is required to uplift the underprivileged. ठीक है, makes sense. How bail hearings take on the garb of a trial. ये आप चाहो तो पढ़ सकते हो. This is optional. talks about UAPA. The UAPA prohibits a judge from granting bail on a perusal of a police report. The judge is of the opinion that there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accusation is prima facie true. तो बेसिकली यहाँ पे सीन ये है, ये उमर खालिद के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में है दैट उनको बेल क्यों नहीं मिल रही है. तो यूएपीए के जो केसेस हैं यूजुअली टेररिस्ट पे लगाए जाते हैं या फिर सेपरेटिस्ट एक्टिविटीज के लिए लगाए जाते हैं. एंड अनलॉफुल एक्टिविटीज प्रिवेंशन एक्ट है यूएपीए. तो इसमें जो है बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ विक्टिम पे होता है, यानी कि अगर आप पे यूएपीए लग जाएगा तो आपको प्रूफ करना पड़ेगा कि आप टेररिस्ट नहीं हो. गवर्नमेंट नहीं प्रूफ करेगी कि आप टेररिस्ट हो, गवर्नमेंट ने बोल दिया आप टेररिस्ट, अब आप प्रूफ करो कि आप नहीं हो. दैट इज व्हाट द यूएपीए इज. इस टाइप के और भी लॉज हैं, जैसे एनडीपीएस इज वन ऑफ देम, जहाँ पे आपको प्रूफ करना पड़ता है कि भाई आपने ड्रग्स नहीं बेचे. ठीक है. वैसे यूजुअली क्रिमिनल लॉ की बात करें तो द पर्सन इज इनोसेंट अंटिल प्रूवन गिल्टी. तो अगर आपने मर्डर कर दिया है तो गवर्नमेंट को प्रूफ करना पड़ेगा कि आपने मर्डर किया है. आप नहीं बोलोगे कि भाई मैंने मर्डर नहीं किया है. गवर्नमेंट की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है टू प्रूव beyond reasonable doubt that you have done a murder. So the burden of proof, the onus is on the defendant rather than the plaintiff. ठीक है, बल्कि सॉरी, इट्स ऑन द प्लेंटिफ रादर देन द डिफेंडेंट, उल्टा बोल दिया मैंने. सो या दैट्स व्हाट द केस इज. आगे चलते हैं. जयशंकर मीट्स जर्मन फॉरेन मिनिस्टर, पुशेस फॉर यूरोपियन यूनियन इंडिया एफटीए. व्हाट इज एफटीए? फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट. अब यहाँ पे क्या कॉन्टेक्स्ट है, एक हाई लेवल मीटिंग हुई इंडिया और जर्मनी के बीच में. They basically talked about increasing bilateral trade and fast tracking negotiations for this pending fast track nahi, free trade agreement. And this was between our foreign minister Jaishankar and their foreign minister Johan Vadeful. So अब क्या होगा इस फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट से? इससे बेसिकली टैरिफ्स वगैरह कम हो जाएंगे, मार्केट एक्सेस इजी हो जाएगी, रेगुलेटरी स्टैंडर्ड्स थोड़े ईज डाउन हो जाएंगे एंड ट्रेड बढ़ जाएगा दोनों ग्रुप्स के बीच में. बैकड्रॉप क्या है? बैकड्रॉप वही हमें पता है, यूएस टैरिफ्स, रशियन ऑयल, सैंक्शंस एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. तो जर्मनी के चांसलर फ्रेडरिक मर्ज जो है, उन्होंने रिसेंटली बोला कि सैंक्शंस ऑन नेशंस फंडिंग रशियाज वॉर इकोनॉमी वाया ऑयल एंड गैस परचेजेस, दे शुड बी सैंक्शन. मतलब दे सपोर्टेड द यूएस की पोजीशन. और दिल्ली में जो ये इनके फॉरेन मिनिस्टर आए वंडरफुल, दे डिड नॉट confirm whether Germany would impose penalties on India for taking Russian oil or not. So yeah, that was the case. And yeah, recently SCO summit हुई है जहाँ पे मोदी जी भी मिले, शी जिनपिंग भी मिले, पुतिन भी मिले. एंड वैडेफेल जो है ये कह रहे हैं कि रशिया एंड चाइना आर द बिगेस्ट चैलेंजेस टू ग्लोबल ऑर्डर. सो इज सॉर्ट ऑफ अ लिटिल वेस्ट लीनिंग आप कह सकते हो. Jaishankar did not directly engage with the strong comments made by Germany, but he definitely said that India's support to a multipolar world and strategic autonomy would always be there. So yeah, टेक अवे यही है कि इंडिया और जर्मनी का रिलेशनशिप अच्छा है, स्ट्रांग हो रहा है, एंड वी आर वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स जियोपॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी. अभी काफ़ी हर्डल्स हैं एफटीए पास होने में बिकॉज ऑफ द रशियन कंट्रोवर्सी, बट इंडिया इज ट्राइंग टू स्ट्राइक अ बैलेंस बिटवीन दीज थिंग्स. ठीक है जी, आगे चलते हैं. गावली स्टेप्स आउट ऑफ जेल आफ्टर 18 years as Supreme Court grants him bail in 2007 murder case. Okay, government plans to link 11 lakh Anganwadis with schools. Interesting. Anganwadi centers cater to nutrition and early learning needs of children between 0 and 6 years. So इनको merge कर दिया जाएगा schools के साथ, which is good. BJP to hold meetings. Tejashwi Yadav hits Modi. This is all politics. Union government exempts Sri Lankan Tamil refugees who came before 2015 from penal provisions. Okay. Chief Justice कह रहे हैं Supreme Court has championed the right to dignity through multiple judgments. Just a moment, guys. Yep, sorry about the interruption. हम कहाँ पे थे? हाँ. So B.R. Gavai ji कह रहे हैं that human dignity is the soul of the Constitution, which sources and binds together core values like personal liberty, freedom to choose, equality, and fraternity, and the court wants to uphold it. Okay, cool. DGCA says flyers without mobility issues can pay for wheelchair. तो पहले ये होता था कि व्हीलचेयर जो है वही लोग ले सकते हैं जिनके पास डिसेबिलिटी है. अब जो है जिनको मोबिलिटी इश्यूज नहीं भी हैं, दे कैन ऑल्सो पे फॉर व्हीलचेयर्स. ओके. ठीक है, यहाँ कुछ इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है। 1500 crore scheme for critical minerals recycling, part of the National Critical Mineral Mission. Okay. 80th anniversary of China's victory in Second World War. She displays China's military prowess as Russia and Korean leaders watch. Okay. Google does not have to sell Chrome in antitrust victory. इंडिया ने जो है ड्रॉ कर लिया अपना मैच रिसेंट वाला एशिया कप का विद डिफेंडिंग चैंपियंस कोरिया। ओके, जोकोविक और अल्कराज का मुकाबला होने वाला है अब यूएस ओपन में। Okay, that's about the newspaper for the day. Let's come back to our PPT and look at our articles. The first one is regarding GST slabs. We have already discussed Karchuna. Let's see it in detail. The GST Council during its 56th meeting decided to revamp the tax structure into two-rate system as proposed by the government, Nirmala Sitharaman said. Apart from the two rates of 5% and 18%, the new GST system would also include a 40% special rate on sin goods like tobacco and luxury goods like large cars, yachts, and helicopters. Come into effect on 22nd September, and only tobacco and related products will move to the new structure at a date to be specified later by the finance minister. She said common use and middle class items will see a reduction. Products like hair oil, soap, shampoo, toothbrush, toothpaste, bicycle, table, kitchenware, other household items are being moved to 5% from either 18 or 12%. Other items moving down to 5% are namkeen, sauces, pasta, instant noodles, chocolates, coffee, and butter. 12 is specified biopesticides, biomenthol, labor-intensive items like handicrafts, travertine blocks, granite blocks, and leather goods would move from 12% to 5%. Cement will move from 28 to 18. And she said that items such as ultra-high temperature milk, paneer, and all Indian bread, roti, chapati, paratha will see their tax fall to 0% from earlier 5%. Nice. Life insurance policies and health policies will move to 0% from 18%. 33 life-saving medicines will move from 12 to 0%. Tax on EV has been retained at 5%. The second article, the editorial, concealing a judge's dissent, eroding judiciary's authority. Eroding means damaging. Judges in India have routinely invoked this principle to demand accountability from the state, but with reports surfacing in the media of the dissent by Justice Nagratna on the Collegium's recommendation to elevate Justice Vipul Pancholi, it appears that this culture of justification ends at the Collegium's door. When it comes to court selecting its own members, the public seemingly has no right to them. A dissent of this kind ordinarily would represent a moment of reckoning. But the Collegium and its total opacity means no transparency, has meant that the opposition has proven not so much a failure as a futile exercise, useless exercise. The resolution uploaded on court's website displaying the recommendation suggests unanimity. It makes no mention of Justice Nagratna's dissent. We only learnt about her objections through reports in the media. The Collegium has been resistant to transparency from its inception. It's a product of judge-made law, created in the second judge's case of 1993, जहाँ पे Collegium system develop हुआ, and entrenched in the third judge's case. The system vests primacy in the 5 senior-most judges of the Supreme Court to appoint members of the higher judiciary. They deliberate in private, they think about who would be elevated in private, record decisions with minimal disclosure, and rarely explain their reasoning. तो बस अपनी मर्जी से चल रहा है. Beginning in 2017, Collegium began publishing its resolutions कि कौन जो है elevate होगा. But these were skeletal at best, मतलब बाहर का skeletal, and amounted to little more than formal announcements. For a short period, 2018 court uploaded fuller reasons for the Collegium's choices and rejections. However, the experiment was short-lived, with the explanation that disclosure might damage reputations. Judges chosen today will shape the outcomes of India's most urgent constitutional questions that range from issues like civil liberties to the limits of executive power and the division of authority between union and states. And the Collegium must accept reforms and make it more transparent. The last article is regarding India's recent maritime reforms, which need course correction. The context is the passage of the Indian Ports Bill of 2025 in Rajya Sabha, which marks a pivotal movement in India's maritime legislative history. Intended to repeal, matlab take back, and replace the Act of 1908, this Act, Indian Ports Bill, it comes alongside the newly enacted Coastal Shipping Act of 2025, the Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2025, and Merchant Shipping Act 2025, a legislative package that the government hails as critical to streamlining maritime governance and bringing India's shipping regulation in line with global practices. At first glance, these new laws, क्या हो गया भाई, clear क्यों नहीं हो रहा? Yeah, at first glance, these new laws represent a comprehensive attempt to modernize India's maritime governance. And अभी जो है काफी fragmented है, outdated है, with modern shipping finance, offshore operations, and international conventions long having outpaced the legal and operational frameworks in place. यानी कि आजकल का जो फाइनेंस और शिपिंग है वो बहुत ज़्यादा आगे बढ़ चुका है, हमारे जो लॉज हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा पीछे रह गए हैं, तो वो अपडेट करने की ज़रूरत है. For India to expand its trade and attract foreign investment and enhance maritime standing, we need to align with global best practices. And in particular, Indian Port Act has been a facilitative law, one that enables ease of business, promotes port development, brings coherence to India's disjointed regulatory environment. And even so, the bill's passage without a serious parliamentary debate or referral to a standing committee raises a lot of doubts, underlining the absence of political consensus and public scrutiny. Notably, the Ports Act has been criticized for centralizing power at the expense of the states, diluting safeguards meant to protect Indian sovereignty. Critic points to its main failure, the Maritime State Development Council, as centralized policy-making authority with the power to direct states to follow central guidelines. Far from an illustration of cooperative federalism, where the states cooperate with the union, they contend that the new Ports Act is an example of federal subordination, यानी कि federalism को आप subordinate कर रहे हो, दबा रहे हो, designed to ensure that states align their port development with plans of the center, such as the Sagarmala initiative, which is development of ports, PM Gati Shakti, regardless of their own priorities of the state. Critics point to the Maritime State Development Council's structure and intent, where they cannot adjust their own frameworks without center's approval, as stripping coastal states of fiscal means money-related autonomy and flexibility, even while burdened with tight port management responsibilities. Experts are saying that this new law introduces very vague powers, discretionary powers with the center that could saddle smaller operators with unmanageable compliance burdens. बहुत सारे regulations, compliance हो जाएंगे. And that brings us to the end of today's analysis. Let's look at the vocabulary of the day. The first vocab word is largesse or largesse. Largesse is its pronunciation, I guess. Generosity in bestowing money or gifts upon others. So, daryadili, generosity, munificence, kindness are synonyms. Selfishness, cheapness are antonyms. He throws his largesse to all and sundry. The next word is quibble. Quibble मतलब होता है रोना धोना, नाटक करना, complain करना, बहस करना. To make often peevish criticism. Peevish मतलब जो छोटी चीजें आपको परेशान करती हैं, that's your peeve. Or objections about matters that are minor, unimportant or irrelevant. Antonyms are applaud, commend and praise. Sentences let's not quibble over minor details. The last word for the day is facile. Facile का मतलब होता है एकदम no depth, lacking any depth or character, superficial, shallow. The movie takes a facile look at what happens when teens enter into serious romantic relationships. Antonyms are profound, which means deep or general. So yeah, these are the three new words. Facile, which is lacking depth. Quibble means complaining or criticizing for small things. And largesse means generosity and kindness. And that brings us to the end of today's discussion. I'll see you all in tomorrow's discussion, same time. And yeah, no mentee this week, but we'll have a bigger mentee on Tuesday. That's a promise. So yeah, stay tuned and keep learning. I'll see you all in another session. Take care. Good night. Bye bye. Signing off.